Americans will feel proud of their country's scientific and technological achievements in 1959 as NASA names the original astronauts, 7 brave men whose task it will be to carry us into the uncharted realm of space. It'll be a glorious adventure, and it'll seem that our Cold War conflict with the Soviet Union is becoming less severe. The Soviet Premier, Nikita Khrushchev, will make an unprecedented transcontinental tour of the United States, and then will meet with President Eisenhower at Camp David. And for a time, although anti-colonial protests will spread in Africa, the world will seem a safer, calmer place. Certainly this year of 1959, the United States will become a bigger place. Alaska will be admitted as our 49th state, then Hawaii as our 50th. And the St. Lawrence Seaway will open, a monument to peaceful and cooperative relations between the United States and Canada. In space, probes will reach the moon, photograph it, crash into it, and land on it softly. We'll see for the first time how our planet looks from space. This will be the year that transcontinental passenger jet service begins. This and much more is the year 1959. Let's watch.
Well, Kathy goes with Bob, Millie goes with Jack. They went down a lover lane and never coming back because they got. Well, everybody's got the news. Now everybody's dancing and dancing to the rock and roll blues. Well, Mama heard it once, Daddy heard it too. When they heard that rock and roll, they knew just what to do because they got it. Well, everybody's got the news. Well, everybody's dancing and dancing to the rock and roll blues. Well, I went down to the corner, saw my baby there. Said, hey, baby, don't you be no square because they got it. Well, everybody's got the news. Well, everybody's dancing and dancing to the rock and roll blues.
In the White House, President Eisenhower signs the proclamation that makes Alaska's entry into the Union official, nearly 92 years after Lincoln's Secretary of State bought the territory from the Russian Tsar for $7 million. In the years since, Alaska has yielded well over $1 billion in new wealth and moves steadily but slowly toward statehood. Now the President's signature makes it officially the 49th state. At the same time, Ike solves one problem created by the added state. He announces the new design of the flag. And across the country, manufacturers go into action, bringing the stars and stripes up to date. The problem of the 49th star has been solved by a field of 7 staggered rows of 7 stars each. And while it is not mandatory to replace 48-starred flags now in use, the manufacturers hopefully look towards a boom in business as America rushes to keep up with the new look of Old Glory. From his stronghold in the wild Sierra Maestre Mountains, Cuba's Fidel Castro emerged triumphant after 2 years of guerrilla warfare against the Batista regime. The revolution that began with Castro a fugitive, practically alone, landing with 82 followers, to be nearly wiped out by government forces, ended with the flight of dictator Fulgencio Batista and the entry into Havana of rebel forces to be acclaimed by the city. The forces of Castro's 26th of July movement, named for the anniversary of his first attack on the regime in 1953, have grown vastly, their power enlarged by captured and surrendered army weapons. Nearly 2 years of hit-and-run warfare aimed at toppling Batista's government by paralyzing Cuba's economy culminated in victory as 1958 ended. Castro met an all-out government offensive with a counterattack, and in the battle for the key rail center of Santa Clara, won the crucial victory. Batista resigned to prevent more bloodshed and fled the country. His departure touched off wild rejoicing in the capital as the first elements of rebel forces entered Havana. At first, the celebration was peaceful as shouting, cheering crowds surged through the city. Then the temper of the throng changed, and an ugly mob ranged the streets. Its prime targets, the symbols of the overthrown regime. The gambling casinos, the parking meters, the homes and businesses of Batista's cronies. 6 years of surface prosperity and government corruption, of repression and police brutality, bred explosive discontent. Now Batista has fled. A new leader is on the scene, Fidel Castro, in many ways an unknown quantity in his politics and policies, but certain to be dominant in Cuba's new era, just begun. Safely docked in Brooklyn, the liner Constitution shows a 40-foot gash in her port side, the scar from a collision in foggy seas outside New York Harbor with a Venezuela-bound tanker. Those ships were running empty, and ironically, each had just completed an overhaul. The Constitution's superstructure had been extended forward, a multi-million-dollar conversion to give more passenger space. The Norwegian tanker Jolanta lies alongside, 100 feet of her bow broken off. On both the 569-foot oiler and the liner, there were no casualties. The collision took place in fog, but both ships were equipped with radar. A costly traffic accident in the busy crossroads of the sea outside New York Harbor. On the fashion calendar, it's time to think of spring, which means Easter, which means hats, such as this Lily Daché. Or this Chesterfield original cloche of cherry fizz pink petals. Just 2 items in a collection from the top designers of New York, Paris, California, and Miami, showcased at an old Spanish monastery in Miami, all chiming the same fashion note, light, airy, colorful. Broad brims deserve a special nod, the saucy straw sailor. The Leghorn picture hat with airy loop brim and vented crown. The Oriental coolie in rough straw with squared brim. Yes, the hats this year may not make anyone's head swim, no hair-raising novelties. They're just pretty hats in a pleasing panorama, promising preview for Easter. The World Figure Skating Championships at Colorado Springs in the men's division. 2-time champion David Jenkins tries for 3. Brilliant performance, climaxed by a flawless spin. His brother, Hayes Allen Jenkins, was champion 4 times before him. Now David Jenkins wins his 3rd World Championship. Next on the agenda, a crack at the Olympic gold medal in 1960, still following the family tradition. In the women's division, another champion, Carol Heiss, defends her crown. With a commanding lead in points, she gives a practically perfect performance in the free skating. The skating queen from Queens, New York, tallies an awesome 1,358 points for her 4th consecutive crown. At St. Petersburg, the New York Yankees start training for another season. They're favored to add at least another pennant to the victory string of 9 pennants and 7 World Series under manager Casey Stengel. With Mickey Mantle in the fold, the big remaining problem is pitching. The big wheel of the staff, Bob Turley. Here's old Bob, tops in the league with 21 wins last year. But other key men, like Whitey Ford, must prove they've recovered from 1958 arm troubles. Fireball relief ace Ryan Duran underwent a knee operation last fall. Elsewhere, the Yanks have their usual strength and depth, with such reliables on hand as Yogi Berra, Hank Bauer, Moose Skowron, Elston Howard, slated to play in more games, and Gil McDougall. With pitching the only question mark, the Yankees, as usual, are the team to beat.
a test flight into the strange realm of zero gravity. In this plane, which first power dives, then pulls upward sharply and coasts on, gravity disappears, counterbalanced by centrifugal force. And spacemen of tomorrow, together with life science editor Warren Young, get a taste of the world of weightlessness. Each zero-gravity run lasts for only 15 seconds, but those who have experienced it say that in no gravity, time seems to stretch out, and you gradually do learn to navigate. Many problems of life at no gravity remain to be discovered, let alone solved. But first fears that tomorrow's spacemen could not adjust to the loss of orientation have been disproved. In fact, experimenters report no gravity is a delightful sensation. Hollywood's biggest night of the year, the Academy Award ceremonies at the Pantages Theater. Returning to Hollywood after 10 years' absence, Ingrid Bergman attracts an extra measure of attention among the dazzling roster of luminaries on hand. Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis are others of the hundreds of stars and celebrities present for Hollywood's own accolade to its finest. The Academy's choice as Best Actress of the Year is announced by James Cagney.
Lucky Lovely, Susan Hayward, and I Want to Live.
4 times nominated, at last a winner.
David Niven.
The Best Actor of the Year, named by Irene Dunn. The Oscar winners for 1958. A periscope. What's the target? A fashion preview without the designer's knowledge. In the world of haute couture, all the rage are cloaks and daggers. Pirating new designs is big business. As these expose films show, no matter how the honest designers try to protect themselves, the pirates are always a leg up on them. Innocent doodling or friendly back-scratching turns out to be real undercover work. Another coup for the Corsairs on a no longer exclusive design headed for the cut-price market.
A United States helicopter flies a delegation of the Organization of American States, OAS, into the Panama town of Nombre de Dios, the beachhead of a force of 87 rebels led by a Cuban adventurer. The hemisphere-wide organization moves swiftly as alarm grew over the mounting threat to Panama. Some of the freebooters told investigators that they were sent by Fidel Castro's brother, but Cuba officially denied involvement, and a Cuban representative on the peace team helped swing their decision to abandon the week-old campaign. Decisive action ends a threat to the stability of all Central America. Ike's Gettysburg Farm is the first stop for Secretary of State Christian Herter after the Allied Foreign Ministers Conference in Paris, Herter's first major job in his new post. He reports on the policy agreed on for the foreign ministers meeting with Russia's Gromyko in Geneva. Details of the Allied proposal will not be made public until after being presented to the Soviet. Report completed. It's back to the capital by helicopter. Before 10,000 at Indianapolis, heavyweight champion Floyd Patterson slashes away at his fourth challenger, Britain's Brian London. In the 9th round, a thunderous barrage of body blows to bring down London's guard and crack open the dogged defense of the 10-1 underdog. London goes down on one knee after a smashing right high on the cheek late in the 10th round. But the bell at the count of 5 saves the challenger. '11th round. This is Patterson's first title defense in months. Afterwards, he said he was rusty, only 55% of himself. But the champ's reflexes are clicking now, and he solves London's defense. London is under blistering fire, and a smashing hook drives him across the ring for the KO. Referee Frank Sikora counts him out, outboxed and outgunned all the way, but a stubborn contender to the end. At ringside was Sweden's Ingemar Johansson, who will meet Patterson in June. Then the champion expects to be 100% at par, thanks in part to this solid workout against London. Coming up, what may be Patterson's toughest fight since his title bout with Archie Moore. It's the 85th Run for the Roses at Churchill Downs with $100,000 on hand for this year's Kentucky Derby. 17 top 3-year-olds parade to the post. The favorite at 18-5, First Landing with Eddie Arcaro up. Number 5 is the publicized filly, Silver Spoon. Here are the entries to watch: Tommy Lee with Willie Shoemaker aboard, and Sword Dancer, Bill Boland riding. Time for a last sip of that julep before they're off. Royalist takes the early lead with Tommy Lee breaking fast from the number 9 post, running second. First Landing is back on the rail in 8th position. A fast pace with a mile to go in the 1.25 mile Turf Classic. Past the 3/4 mark, Tommy Lee leading, overtaken by Sword Dancer. There's bumping on the turn, and it's a 2-horse race rounding into the stretch. Sword Dancer ahead on the outside. More bumping as Shoemaker works his way into a sensational spurt. It's one of the most spirited homestretch battles in the annals of the Derby. A furlong from the finish, Sword Dancer still leads by a head, but they go across in a photo finish. Tommy Lee by a nose. It isn't official until Boland's claim of foul is ruled out by the stewards. Then the blanket of roses and a $119,000 purse to Tommy Lee. At Edwards Air Force Base, a B-52 mother plane carries aloft the X-15 rocket plane for another in the painstaking series of development tests leading up to the epic mission for which it was designed. To carry a man beyond the fringes of the Earth's atmosphere and to return him to the ground. The X-15 is cut loose 7 miles over the Mojave Desert to fall free and glide back to Earth, testing the stability of the most radically different aerodynamic structure ever engineered. A craft designed to reach speeds of up to 4,000 miles an hour, to skim the upper limits of the world's blanket of air, and then to handle like a conventional plane in landing. In this powerless flight, pilot Scott Crossfield brings the X-15 down through the pre-planned glide pattern without a hitch. The space plane's first free flight is a success. At Groton, Connecticut, the launching of the first of America's nuclear-powered missile-firing subs. Mrs. Robert Anderson, wife of the Secretary of the Treasury, christens the new George Washington, and the 380-foot vessel slides down the waves. Designed to fire the Polaris missile while submerged, the new sub will be able to strike at any spot on the Earth's surface. Capable of riding out an enemy attack sheltered under the polar ice if needs be, and then delivering a retaliatory blow, the Polaris-class submarine provides a new and vital deterrent against aggression. Beauty upstages the beasts at the San Diego Zoo when a bevy of glamour girls moves in to showcase a fashion line owing a certain amount of inspiration to the animal kingdom, like the leopard, for instance, sleek and spotted. Or something black and pantherish. In coats, the newest styles still utilize a classic fabric right off the back of the ship of the desert, camel's hair. What else? Fashion for a nifty nomad. The penguin is the epitome of elegance, its natural white bib and tucker providing the pattern for eye-catching black and white evening frocks. It's a tribute and acknowledgement to Mother Nature, who originated the classic color scheme, style, and pattern for every setting. Witness this femme fatale with a touch of jungle charm. Vice President Nixon escorts Soviet Premier Khrushchev on a preview of the United States Fair at Skolniki Park in Moscow. It's the official opening of the American Exposition, counterpart of the Soviet Trade Show in New York, and dedicated to showcasing the high standard of life in our country. But on this occasion, traditional diplomacy goes by the board, and the story of the fair itself is eclipsed by a crackling exchange between Nixon and Khrushchev, begun off camera and finished off before the American Ampex color videotape recorders. Every aspect of the Cold War and Soviet-American rivalry is argued in blunt and forthright terms. The threat of atomic warfare, diplomacy by ultimatum, economic progress. Says Mr. K, the Soviet will overtake America and then wave bye-bye. Both Khrushchev and Nixon appear to enjoy themselves. Says Khrushchev, he is a communist spokesman dealing with a capitalist lawyer.
All that I can say from the way you talk and the way you dominate the conversation, you would have made a good lawyer yourself.
But the culmination is agreement that both nations should hear the startling debate uncensored.
All of these reporters here, we have every word that you have said, every word that you have said has been taken down, and I would promise you that every word that you have said here will be reported in the United States, and they will see you say it on television.
Но я видел, я сомневаюсь, поэтому я хочу, чтобы вы, вице-президент, что вы даете слово, что моя речь тоже будет записана на английском языке.
Telecast over TV.
Будет, нет?
English.
Certainly it will. Certainly. Yes. Right, right. In fact, and at the same token, everything that I say will be recorded and translated and will be carried all over the Soviet Union. That's a fair bargain.
One million machete-wielding peasants jammed the square before Cuba's national capital in response to the call of Fidel Castro for a celebration of the 6th anniversary of his 26th of July revolutionary movement. It is perhaps the greatest mass rally ever staged in the Western Hemisphere, a telling demonstration of Castro's sway over the Cuban masses. Showing another aspect of his character, the unpredictable Castro dons a baseball uniform to pitch a full inning in a benefit game for his agrarian land reform fund. His new president, Dorticos, tosses the first ball and the game is on. Castro pitching is credited with striking out the three batters he faces. Could be. This one game where the ump really has to be careful. Viva Fidel! Contestants for the title of Miss Universe take the stage for the finals at Long Beach, and everything is in good shape for this year's edition of the Battle of Beauty, with curvaceous contenders from every corner of the globe. Miss Japan, Akiko Kojima, statuesque by Eastern standards with her just over 5'6" height, measures up as a finalist. She's 37, 23, 38. 5 potential winners, the Misses Norway, USA, Japan, England, and Brazil. Now it's up to the judges, and they tap Miss Japan, the first entry from the Orient ever to win the coveted crown. A rising beauty from the land of the rising sun. A really fanatic ski bird can't be grounded, it seems. What if it is midsummer? Who needs snow? The place, Italy's Ponte di Legno, where history of a sort is made with a new plastic surfacing that's almost as good as the cold, white, old-fashioned stuff.
not be as cold, but it's about as slippery as snow. And what ski meet would be complete without a fall or two? But mostly they're jumping in fine style. Considering the off-season setting, they're doing incredibly well. And of course, a 150-foot jump isn't bad any time of the year. The winner, Nilo Zanadel, thanks to the magic of plastic. Isn't progress grand? At Germany's seaside resort of Cuxhaven, it's the Mother's Day Stakes. No pari-mutuels here, but nobody's out to beat the races. They're out to beat the heat. It was just too hot to get the people to the track, so they brought the track where the people were, cooling off in the briny. And if anyone complains there's something fishy about this, it makes sense. After the first few furlongs, or should it be fathoms, horses and drivers are so mud-splattered you can't tell who's ahead anyway. One winner who really made quite a splash. Highlights of 1959 in the world of sports. Skiing at Garmisch in the downhill event. Some of the world's most expert on the Hickory Flyers coming to grief on one of the world's most fiendishly difficult and treacherous courses. They set back the art of skiing by decades with this event. The world-famous Arlberg-Kandahar ski meet. A very upsetting spectacle all around. Another kind of upset at Louisville in the NCAA basketball final. California dark shirts fighting off the final seconds rally of the West Virginia Mountaineers. With time ticking out, the Bears need to shave to one lone point, but it's enough. A 71-70 score brings California and the West Coast their first title in 17 years. Track and field sensation of the year was the 7 feet, inch and a quarter high jump of John Curtis Thomas in Madison Square Garden. A dazzling new world record for the 17-year-old Boston U freshman. On the links, the Wingfoot Club in Mamaroneck, New York, played host to 1959's Open Championship. Claude Harmon, on his home course, showed some classy putting. But Billy Casper, with the finest putting of all, took charge right down the line, finishing with 282, 2 over par, to beat his closest challenger by a one-stroke margin. Bill Casper from Apple Valley, California, National Open champ. The tops in tennis at Forest Hills, where Australia won back the Davis Cup, and Neil Fraser, the southpaw from down under, sprang an upset by defeating Alex Olmedo, America's Peruvian Indian star, and 2 weeks later repeated the triumph to win the United States singles crown as well. Turf history was made at Churchill Downs with the sensational finish of the Kentucky Derby. Tommy Lee and Sword Dancer in one of the greatest stretch duels ever. It produced the only foul claim in Derby history, but Tommy Lee won the Run for the Roses. The World Series came to a rousing climax in Chicago with the White Sox championship contenders for the first time in many years, but looking very shaky against the Los Angeles Dodgers miracle team. In the 6th game, Los Angeles exploded with Duke Snider's third-inning homer for a 2-0 lead. Then in the 4th, reliever Dick Donovan was belted for 6 more runs. Wally Moon climaxed the barrage with a long drive into the stands. On the mound to finish it off for the Dodgers, Larry Sherry, who was responsible for all 4 L.A. victories. From 7th place at the end of the previous season, the Dodgers rebounded to the top in 59, first team in Diamond history to turn the trick. In In San Francisco, the AAU Platform Diving Championships at Fleischhacker Pool offered a superb display of the most graceful events in the world of sports. Gary Tobian wins for the 5th straight year. When the mermaids take over, it's the same story, only more so, a treat for the spectator. On the distaff side, for the 4th successive year, Paula Jean Myers-Pope outscores them all. It's made official at the White House. President Eisenhower congratulates the new congressional representatives of Hawaii before the simple ceremonies that remake the geography of the United States, adding the 50th and southernmost state with a land area of 6,500 miles and a population of 600,000. During the multiple pen signing, the President is flanked by Vice President Nixon and Speaker of the House, Sam Rayburn. Hawaii's half-century-old request for statehood is granted.
Gentlemen, I think that we shall recognize that this is truly an historic occasion because for the second time within a little over a year, a new state has been admitted to the Union. It had been a long time since any state had been admitted. So to have this 49th and 50th member of our Union in such a short space is truly a unique experience.
First Alaska, now Hawaii, and another new flag. President Eisenhower unfurls the banner that will fly from the White House July 4th next, with 9 rows of stars. Another new look for Old Glory. A tiny rural church in the tiny village of Søgne, Norway, becomes a familiar sight for Americans, and an unknown family named Rasmussen becomes world famous. Governor Nelson Rockefeller escorts the mother of the bride to the wedding of their children, a union of one of the world's richest families and one of its simplest. Mrs. Rockefeller goes in with Stephen. The 21-year-old bride is led by her father, Christian, a now renowned retired grocer. 5,000 well-wishers wait outside, amongst them hundreds of newsmen. What might have been a story for the society pages is headline news, a retelling of the oldest story. Anne-Marie Rasmussen, once a maid in the Rockefeller home, is Cinderella come to life. Beside her husband Stephen, she is now Anne-Marie Rockefeller. According to Norwegian tradition, they hadn't kissed during the ceremony, but they do for the American cameraman. A happy ending for a modern fairy tale, and they lived happily ever after. Chicago's Arlington Park is packed with 23,000 fans. The start of the $125,000 Arlington Handicap. At post position, wearing number 1 is the favorite, Round Table, racing's biggest moneymaker. He's the horse to watch. In the backstretch of the mile and 3/16 Classic, Round Table, now on the outside, puts his nose into the lead. In the stretch, Round Table, carrying top weight, slows down, and Manassas makes a photo finish of it. But that's all. Round Table sets a world record for the distance and brings his grand winning total more than $1.5 million. A hero's welcome in Bonn for the conqueror of Nazi Germany. The banners of the United States and Germany fly side by side, not for Dwight D. Eisenhower as a conquering general, but for Germany's most powerful ally. Chancellor Konrad Adenauer greets him at Bonn Airport. It's the first of a series of international visits which will reach a climax when Soviet Premier Khrushchev comes to Washington. Eisenhower's official mission is to exchange views with European allied leaders in preparation for that September meeting. Secretary Herter hears the President's words of praise and hope for the German people.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply grateful to you, Mr. Chancellor, for your words of welcome, and indeed for the warm welcome that your fellow citizens here at this airport have accorded to me and to my party. In my country, the name Adenauer has come to symbolize the determination of the German people to remain strong and free. And the American people stand by your side in ensuring that the loyal free people of free Berlin will, like yourselves, continue always to enjoy that great privilege.
Reassuring words that the West German people have been waiting hungrily to hear. "315,000 cheering people line the 20-mile route from the airport. Eisenhower's determined refusal of Soviet demands to leave Berlin have made him one of the most popular men in West Germany. Personal triumph for the President as he begins what may turn out to be the most significant chapter of an epic career. On the steps of New York City Hall, a moment from the past is relived. Gertrude Ederle is there again, smiling for photographers, much as she did 33 years ago, when the big city paid her tribute for the big swim. It was August 27, 1926, when the 19-year-old Trudy returned from England as a national heroine. She had conquered the English Channel. Only 5 men had ever done it before, but Trudy's time was 2 hours faster, and she was a woman. The roaring 20s never were louder, and New York's reception was overwhelming and historic. This was the city's first ticker tape parade, setting a precedent for the Lindbergh reception the following year. In 1959, Gertrude Ederle is an active businesswoman, still interested in sports, especially swimming. But 1926 belonged to her. Trudy, alongside fabulous Mayor Jimmy Walker, the toast of the town. A new housing development near Denver, Colorado shows the nation's first model homes with built-in fallout shelters. The room is designed with an atomic war in mind. But behind each 8-inch thick reinforced concrete wall, it may prove to be just what the harried housewife is looking for when life with the kids gets too hectic. This model is equipped for a long stay, for minimum comfort and maximum protection. Bunk beds conserve space, and battery and hand-powered equipment is there. This crank-driven air blower will help in case electric lines are down. Civil defense officials approve. Let's hope it proves to be nothing more than an extra room. For guests at Germany's famous Bad Kissingen Resort, gymnasts from England, France, and Austria fly through the air with the greatest of ease in a demonstration of trampoline fun and skill. Life on the net is full of ups and downs. A false step could mean disaster, but these experts are wizards of body control with power steering in every muscle. The same techniques look good from the diving platform. Slow motion captures every graceful detail. Trampoline or diving board, it's high and fancy flying. Summer can't have much longer to go, not when they're taking to the ice at Atlantic City. It's the warm-up for this year's edition of the Icecapades before its annual cross-country tour. That's Helga, an import from Germany, cutting a fine figure on the frozen floor. World champion Ronnie Robertson is nicknamed the Blur for obvious reasons. He whizzes towards the exit at 240 RPMs. Even a shaggy dog story in the 41-act extravaganza. A preview of winter, breathtaking, especially for the performers. The National Tennis Finals at Forest Hills and the United States unrepresented on the courts. Christine Truman of England serving versus Brazil's Maria Esther Bueno for the women's title. Miss Bueno scores a great shot to the corner. Miss Bueno serves. This 19-year-old Brazilian is a powerhouse player. Miss Bueno serving again, far court. It's Miss Truman's turn with a brilliant cross-court shot. Match point now. Miss Bueno's service overwhelms her English opponent. She wins 6-1, 6-4. First foreigner to win the U.S. women's crown since Anita Lizana of Chile in 1937. Soviet Russia scores a dramatic victory in the exploration of space with the launching of the first rocket to hit the moon. An historic scientific feat simulated in these scenes, which show the course of the multi-stage rocket carrying the 858-pound Lunik. Bearing the Soviet coat of arms and hammer and sickle pennants, it traveled 35 hours through space. It is the first man-made object to voyage from one cosmic body to another. Western observers monitored Lunik's 2 radios to the very moment of impact, which occurred almost dead on target, the geographical center of the face of the moon. Impressive marksmanship at 250,000 miles range. In one spectacular, well-timed move, Russia scores a major scientific advance, dramatically demonstrates the accuracy and reliability of its missiles, and gives Khrushchev a propaganda bonus on the eve of his visit to America. Moscow shot for the moon and scored a bullseye. Atlantic City is once again the beauty capital of the nation, as 54 chosen lovelies from each state of the Union, Canada, Chicago, New York City, and the capital, take the stage to vie for the title of Miss America. In evening gowns or in bathing suits, they represent a magnificent array of pulchritude and talent, an imposing challenge to the judges, who nevertheless managed to reduce the field to 5 finalists, on the verge of fame and fortune. And the winner, Miss Mississippi, Linda Lee Meade, receives her crown from her predecessor, also from Mississippi and a college sorority sister. 20 years old, brunette, green-eyed, and 36, 24, 36, Linda Lee stacks up to be a worthy wearer of the crown. In Tehran, the resplendent Golestan Palace is the setting for the 40th birthday celebration of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who receives the felicitations of the diplomatic corps and leaders of the government and the military. At this time, rumor had it the Shah would announce his 3rd marriage, but the monarch remained silent on the topic, as the ceremony concluded with a traditional and spectacular pyrotechnic display. Fiery birthday tribute. In the Senate hearing room, the dramatic climax of the probe of fixed and rigged quiz shows. Charles Van Doren's wife and father, poet Mark Van Doren, are in the audience as committee chairman Senator Orrin Harris opens the hearing. Charles Van Doren arrives to apologize and attempt to explain to the millions whose friendship and respect he had won. In his quiz show appearances, he also won $129,000 and earned a handsome broadcasting contract. Van Doren retracts his earlier denials of getting any assistance. He admits that he received dramatic coaching and the questions and many of the answers. But his statement is a rueful and moving realization that for his wealth and fame, he paid a bitterly high price. Some of the foremost names in the world of entertainment attend a special showbiz preview of Sapphire, UI's new release at the Sutton Theater. Among them, Red Buttons and his wife. Hermione Gingold, escorted by Christopher Hewitt. Edward Mulhare. Yolanda Betbezy, former Miss America, and Jeffrey Lynn. Nancy Berg and Jeffrey Horn. Nancy Olson. Sidney Blackmer, a galaxy of stars to greet the new J. Arthur Rank thriller, Sapphire. At Yankee Stadium, it's Army against the Air Force, with Air Force Secretary Douglas and Chief of Staff General White among the 68,000 cheering the inaugural of a new service classic. The Falcons lead by 6, and Glenn Blumhart takes Caldwell's pass to put Army back in the fray. Bob Anderson drives off tackle to gain 7 yards for the Cadets as the quarter ends. Playing with a leg injury, Anderson plows across for the TD, and Army goes into the lead 7-6. Towards the end of the half, Anderson plunges over the goal line again, and Army heads the Falcons 13-6. In the final quarter, Joe Caldwell passes to Don Usery. It's a fumble, and John Balcom grabs it for the Air Force on the Cadets 30. On fourth down, the Falcons' Rich Mayo rolls out and fires a pass to Quickie for a first down. 2 plays later, Mike Quinlan streaks wide around right end to score, and the Falcons tie it up in the closing minutes. It's a thrilling beginning for a new gridiron tradition as the Falcons race the clock with another scoring threat. The kick by Pupik is wide of the goal post. The game ends 13-all with glory aplenty for both sides. At Baton Rouge, a clash of titans, LSU and Mississippi, both unbeaten and untied. 67,500 see Charlie Flowers ram off right tackle. Ole Miss first down on the 8. LSU's famous Chinese bandits on defense bounced Jake Gibbs back on an attempted rollout. So on fourth down, Bob Kayett boots one to split the goalposts at 22 yards. Mississippi leads 3-0. Mississippi leads into the fourth quarter, but the Tigers' defense is still savage. The Rebels can't get rolling again, and the score stays 3-0. Ole Miss punts. Gibbs kicks deep into Tiger territory. All-American Billy Cannon takes it on the 11 and runs a gauntlet of Mississippi tacklers. Frank Merriwell all the way, 90 yards to the pay dirt. Louisiana State topples Mississippi 7-3 to keep its #1 gridiron rank. President Eisenhower's 3-continent peace mission brings him to Tunisia, the most pro-Western of the Arab lands. Ike is warmly greeted by President Habib Bourguiba, who presents him with a fine Arab steed, a notable addition to the many gifts Ike has received. In this last stop before his arrival in France, he conferred with Bourguiba, one of North Africa's outstanding nationalist leaders, on regional problems, including the Algerian crisis. A fruitful visit in the smallest station on Ike's 22,000-mile itinerary ends as President Eisenhower flies to the USS Des Moines for a cruise to the French shores. The President arrives at Toulon, France, heading toward the climax of his journey. From carrying the message of American goodwill and peacefulness to enthusiastic millions on 3 continents, his mission now changes character. In the coming pre-summit Big Four talks, America, with its allies, faces not only the problem of a united policy toward the Soviet, but of setting in order the NATO military alliance. On the train to Paris, the president appears to have stood the grueling pace of his journey better than anyone else in his party. Rome, Ankara, Karachi, Kabul, New Delhi, Tehran, Athens, Tunis, and now Paris, where Ike is greeted by President de Gaulle and receives the most formal reception anywhere on his tour. General de Gaulle, with his emphasis on restoring French grandeur and his opposition to integration of French military forces into NATO units, stands as the central figure in the Paris talks. And in the talks at Rambouillet, de Gaulle's country home, Ike, Macmillan of Britain, West Germany's Adenauer, and their host agree on inviting Khrushchev to a series of summit talks in Paris, Moscow, London, and Washington, following a visit by de Gaulle to America. Momentous decisions on the eve of a new decade and a new era in the Cold War. In Philadelphia, 37,000 weather-resistant fans are in the stands for the first edition of a new postseason grid event, the Liberty Bowl. On field, also braving a stiff and biting wind, Penn State and Alabama clash. Richie Lucas, Penn State's All-American quarterback, drives to the 27 in the first quarter. Against an ebbing Crimson Tide, the Penn State drive carries into Alabama territory. Lucas passes to Bozick, and it's good, despite wind and weather. The advance is stalled on the Alabama 8. Frost-numb fingers and rugged tackling jolt Kaufman loose from the ball. And so it goes to a scoreless game until Alabama punts into the wind. Watch this. The ball is carried a mere 15 yards. Penn State recovers on the 22 with time left for 2 plays. The first is a short pass to Botula. Good for 4. With seconds remaining, a field goal attempt is in the cards, but Penn State fakes it. Quarterback Gale Hall tosses to Kaufman, and the skullduggery pays off with the only tally of the game. The Nittany Lions win the first Liberty Bowl 7-0.
At my clock, you said a 1:30. Hey, pretty baby, let's have some fun. Shaking in the stomping, shaking in the stomping, shaking in the stomping, stomping and the shaking over you. Well, I looked at my clock, you said a 4:30. Hey, pretty baby, don't you love me no more? Shaking in the stomping, shaking in the stomping, shaking in the stomping, stomping and shaking over you. Well, I'm shaking in the stomping, 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 stomping and shaking over you.
These have been some of the highlights of 1959. We've seen Fidel Castro triumph in Cuba, with the United States unaware of what plans Castro has in store. Our first astronauts go into training. The Soviet Union stretches its arm into space by sending a probe crashing into the moon, while the U.S. stretches its borders with the admission of our 49th and 50th states, Alaska and Hawaii. In spite of the Nixon-Khrushchev debates in Moscow, America and Russia seem to be drawing closer together in 1959. 1960 will see new crises begin to push them apart again.